Okay. What pushed you into fashion?
My grandmother was a dressmaker and her sister. So her sister actually had a shop in the Brisbane city in Brisbane Arcade back when, well, way before actually I was born, obviously. So she taught me how to sew because when my mother was working, I was looked after by my grandmother, and she would make all her own clothes. So that's how it started. And then when I was older, my mother used to have all her dresses made by a local designer called Roz Taylor. So she would take me to the studio and I would see all the dresses being made by Roz's crew, and I would pick up all the little pieces of sample fabric. And back then, that's back in the 80s when troll dolls were in, and I would make dresses for my troll dolls. So I'm still sort of making dresses for trolls, but just different ones.
Um, what has been your proudest moment so far?
Oh God! Well, being invited to debut at New York Fashion Week this September. So prior to that, it was when I won my Australian Fashion Award in 2005. But this just, well, shit on that.
Yeah. Who inspires you in fashion as a?
In terms of a designer, it would be Tom Ford. Um, not just for the fashion aesthetic, but more for what he's done for the industry in terms of pushing boundaries about sex and politics. So, and having a point of view, and not just creating clothes, creating a concept, creating a story. So yeah, Tom Ford is the top one. Others that I really sort of appreciate their designs would be, because they have their own point of view, would be Vivienne Westwood, just because of her sort of structural and architectural elements. Yeah, there are, I respect a lot of designers, but they would be the top two. Like Tom makes sexy clothes appreciated. A lot of people are sort of offended by sex. He makes it wearable. So yeah, so Tom and then Vivienne Westwood.
Awesome. How many years have you done fashion?
I started I started my brand when I was 17. I first entered the Australian Fashion Awards when I was in year 12, but I lied and said I was 18. So in terms of in terms of the industry, they think it's 17 years, but it's actually 18.
Awesome.
Don't lie, kids.
What is a challenge you've come across in the fashion industry?
Everything is a challenge in the fashion industry. Nothing worthwhile is easy. So, I would be sort of worried if things happened too smoothly. So everything you do is a learning process. So you have to expect things to go wrong before they go well. And you guys, I guess we'll see that when you start making clothes, and you must start something and think, oh, I can't finish this. But then when you sit down or walk away and then you come back and you work out a solution, it comes together. But for those hours or days that you're not sure, you think it's over, you think it can't happen. But it's just about leaving it and coming back.
That's great. I'm completing a suit for my HSC. What challenges do you see in undertaking a suit?
The structural element is what's hard. And the uniformity of the patterns. So, that's the most important thing. In terms of with men's suiting, you can't rush it. It's all about the internal structure. People don't realise what happens underneath the suit, which you would have realised now in terms of the layers that go underneath to create that, the fundamental structure, which is the shape. And that's the thing about fashion. One of my favourite quotes from Tom Ford is, if it doesn't fit, it's not fashion.
That's awesome. What are you most excited about for your debut at New York Fashion Week?
Getting it over. I'm excited about going over there and representing Australia as a designer. I think there's been a big hole in the sort of industry in terms of Australians breaking through into the US market. We haven't really seen much, anyone sort of make a mark, let's just say, since Sass and Bide and, the Subi Boys back in sort of, the early 2000s. And, yes, there has been a few that have come through, but none that have stood the test of time. So hopefully that is what will happen. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And finally, last question. How do you, as a designer, know how to fit the client's needs?
That's a good question. You know what? All I can do is bring my aesthetic to the client. Asking them to try things is the most important part of any fashion experience. So when someone says to you, oh, that won't suit me, that's exactly the motivation for me to try, to get them to try it. That's like saying, looking at a shoe and saying it won't fit without trying it on. It's the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard. You have to try things on to see if it works. And I always tell my clients, the mirror is the best judge, right? Not your eyes and not your preconceived ideas about seeing someone else wearing something similar. The mirror will always tell you the answer. And you know that within the first second that you turn around and look in the mirror, whether something looks good or not. If you have to go, oh, I'm not sure, then it's not right. But when you turn around or when you zip something up and you pull your head up and look into the reflection and your face lights up, that's when it works.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Oh gosh. Did that turn off? I hope not.
Still recording out.
Oh, okay, good.
Good. Yeah.